TCI is brought to you by Escandarea, the most dominant 3-year-old this decade. Seeing is believing at eskyonthego.com.
Welcome back to TCI, your inside track to the Breeders' Cup. Alongside Joel Cunningham, I'm John Siegel. No Ed DeRosa today. He's in California, so we're going to have to handle this by ourselves. Before we talk about this weekend's races, Joel, let's recap one race from the weekend. I want to talk about Groupie Doll's performance in the Masters. Joel, This was her comeback race, and I thought she looked great.
She really did, John. I mean, she went about her business perfectly, and really this was the race of the weekend. In terms of Breeders' Cup implication, there was no bigger race than that Masters because of Groupie Doll. She's #1 right now in that filly and mare sprint division. And John, she had been injured, had a little hock injury after she, set a track record with a brilliant performance in the Grade 1 on Churchill Downs on Kentucky Derby weekend. So exciting to see her return. Now we'll go to the Twin Spires TV race replay right now, and you'll see this race was run in the driving rain at Presque Isles over the Tapeta surface, but watch this filly. The thing I like about her so much, John, not only does she doesn't have to take a track with her, she fires every time seemingly, and she's been great with blinkers on, but just look how she puts herself in position right here. The good horses can do that. Her tactical speed to be able to put her rider into the position she needs to be in on the far turn to make her run late, and of course she has a very explosive kick turning for home here. Now it's not as explosive on the Tapeta as it is the main track in my opinion, but she still gets the job done, switched her leads nicely, shows that she's much the best in this group. It's a great comeback, John, and it really sets her up nicely to run next out at Keeneland, her last prep for the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Sprint.
All right, Joe, you mentioned that she is #1. We also promised the viewers last week a top 5 for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. Let's jump right into that. I want to start in at #5. There's a filly here that I'm not super familiar with. Her name is Sign. You say here she's got a professional debut. Tell me about her.
Well, she's a Claiborne filly, John. She's by Pulpit. She's out of a great Claiborne family. Mighty is the broodmare sire. Now, he was a two-turn kind of horse. Didn't quite make it as a sire, but the mare could certainly run cross. And you watch this filly, she's not the prettiest moving filly, but to be able to break from the rail first time out, not make the lead in a 2-year-old race, have to take dirt, come around on the far turn, 3 to 4 wide. The way she accelerated and sprinted clear in this race, John, won by about 10 lengths. And being by Pulpit, you would think, out of that female family, she wants to go further. You had to like how professional she was in her debut. So when I'm looking at juvenile fillies, that division, mile and 16, 2 turns on the dirt, for me, she belongs in the top 5.
All right, at #4, you have a horse that we all know now because of her performance. You mentioned Sign won by 10. Let's double this and put on another length. This filly, My Happy Face, won by 21 lengths at Saratoga.
So impressive last week, John. This great filly by Tiz Wonderful. She looked like her sire. Everybody remembers Tiz Wonderful. He won by, 12 lengths in his debut at Saratoga, basically under wraps. Well, fast forward now, one of his first fillies to race does the same thing, 21 lengths, and she was under wraps. You're not going to see a more dominant maiden win probably all year than that. You're probably not going to ever see a more dominant maiden win at Saratoga. I can't remember the last 21-length winner. It had to have been some time ago. What an impressive performance. She did it easy. Question will be, how far can she go? Tiz Wonderful, her sire, again, who did the same thing, he was able to get a mile and a 16th as a 2-year-old. So I'm going to give her the leg up. She belongs in the top 5 for me.
All right, let's move now to #3. We see So Many Ways. Most notably, she won a Grade 1 her last time out.
I mean, she hasn't done anything wrong, John. She's undefeated. Certainly the Grade 1 winner, the Spinaway. I don't think she faced the best group in there. Certainly Teen Pauline was in there, but Teen Pauline I don't think was as good as she was in her debut. She showed that she has a lot of speed, but wasn't able to sustain it going 7 furlongs. So Many Ways, a daughter of sightseeing, a relatively new sire we're learning about. He was a son of Pulpit, was able to handle 2 turns. So when you look at this filly, and how classy she's been, like I said, 3 for 3, a 2-time graded stakes winner, now a Grade 1 winner. You have to like her chances to handle 2 turns and just to be so classy, to already show she's a Grade 1 type filly. I think she belongs in the top 3.
All right, I'm seeing a trend here as I look down this list. I see the trend is domination, and we're going to see it again at #2. It's Dreaming of Julia. Joel, she was hecka dominant last time out.
We didn't talk about the Super Derby so much. We talked about the Masters and how important of a race that was in the Breeders' Cup picture this past weekend. In my opinion, the second most impressive race in terms of the Breeders' Cup picture was that Meadows Star Stakes. Now, it was just a listed stake last Saturday at Belmont. But boy, I think we saw a rising star. In my opinion, everybody's been talking about these Stone Street and Pletcher 2-year-olds.
Yep.
This might be the best one. She just, to me, she looks like an absolute star in the making, especially when you think about the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. You think about the Kentucky Oaks and those longer distances. To me, this filly, she was so dominant, won by 16 lengths. I'm not sure what she beat in there, but that's not the important thing. You watch her, she looks like a big lumbering filly. She kind of has that low head carriage, which is a signature of that AP Indy line that she's from. Here's a filly that just looks like a star, John. I really believe she's the best of that group out in New York, and I really think her future's still in front of her, especially going 2 turns.
All right, there's another filly here at number 1 who has a really bright future. She's still undefeated. It's Executive Privilege, trained by Bob Baffert on the West Coast.
Yeah, I mean, here's another filly that, like so many ways, undefeated, Grade 1 winner, done everything right, run over multiple surfaces. I don't even think she liked the poly track last time out as much as the dirt. However, still got the job done, was able to run down Beholden in there. So I think this filly, again, if you look at her pedigree, an unaccounted for mare, she should handle that middle distance, that mile and a 16th distance. And the fact that she has home field advantage, she's the only California on the list, John, but she's so classy and she has home field advantage, and Baffert is on fire. So for me, she belongs in the number 1 spot. But I tell you what, Dreaming of Julia made it very interesting for me. To me, they're almost like 1 and 1A.
Well, there's a bunch of fillies on here who look like they could be up there. Joel, it's a great list of 2-year-olds. Thank you for that. I want to talk about this weekend's races. Really just one race that I think is the marquee race this weekend. It's the Woodbine Mile. Joel, this race is so important to the Breeders' Cup turf. We saw last year's winner, Court Vision, come out of this race. Tell me some of the horses you see in here, and do you think we could see a repeat of last year?
Yeah, and look at the winner last year, Tour Allure, John, who was probably the top turf miler at the end of the year in North America. If he didn't get in trouble, he may have won the Breeders' Cup Mile. He was obviously the winner of that Woodbine Mile last year.
Right.
Now he's injured and he's on the sidelines. But we have another horse in North America that looks just as explosive, is on the rise, and that's Wise Dan, John. What he did last time out in Saratoga was just, the turn of foot he showed in the stretch was just dynamite. I mean, he looks like he's really found his niche at that mile distance. That was over a yielding course. What's interesting about this race of Woodbine, John, they're giving away $1 million. It's an important prep. But I think we're going to find out how good Wise Dan is. It's a 1-turn mile. He ought to like the 1-turn configuration because he has so much tactical speed. But there's a good European coming in. His name's Cityscape. He's from the Frankel connections.
Right.
He's not Frankel, but he's a pretty darn good miler in his own right. He's a 6-year-old. He's a seasoned veteran. And I think he likes more of a firm type ground. So be interesting to see if Wise Dan can hold him off late. And we'll get the first gauge on how the Europeans and Americans really stack up against each other.
All right, so do you think Wise Dan will get it done this weekend?
I do. I think especially at that 1-turn trip, John, I just think if he doesn't bounce off his last performance, there's no indication that he will. I really feel like he has a tactical edge with that sort of trip over the Europeans coming over, Cityscape, who's also giving him 3 pounds. So I like Wise Dan in here to get the jump and hold on.
All right, thank you, Joel, and thank you guys for watching. Make sure you come back next week. We'll recap the Woodbine Mile.